I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin but by the content of their character. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the best orators of all time. The words that he spoke at March on Washington during the Civil Rights Movement of 1963 are known by students and adults across the nation. As I explain the types of communication and the communication models, I will relate them back to MLK's I Have a Dream speech. Before we break down those things, though, it is important to understand what communication is. It is the way in which thoughts and ideas are sent and received. Sometimes it's verbal, sometimes it's not. Sometimes communication is through gestures or media or public speeches like MLK's. Basically, there are 5 types of communication. These include interpersonal, group, public, and mass. Interpersonal communication is done with oneself, while interpersonal communication is between 2 people. And when communication occurs between more than 2 people and up to 25 people, this is considered group communication. Dr. King was using public communication when he spoke to a group of 250,000 people in 1963's March on Washington. Since that time, his speech has become so famous that it has been distributed among mass communication, which is the 5th form of communication. The I Have a Dream speech has been posted all over the internet and broadcasted nationally on radio and television. And even drafts of the parts of the speech are available in the museums. In addition to 5 types of communication, there are also 3 models of communication to explain just how communication happens. The 3 types of communication models are transmission, interactive, and transactional. The difference between these 3 models is that one says communication is linear, one focuses more on the human behavior, and one emphasizes the role of the audience's interaction with the speaker. Dr. King's speech is also a good example of the basic principles of communication. According to our studies, communication is inescapable. It is essential and cannot be avoided. Additionally, communication is irreversible. Social media has taught us that in the recent years. Once something is said, it cannot be taken back. Dr. King used this to his advantage in his speech, making several references to famous communications from his past. Dr. King alludes to the U.S. Constitution when he says 50 years ago, and at the end of his speech he reuses the words, free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last," from a popular worship song. Now, over 50 years later, our nation still repeats Dr. King's words, I have a dream. In addition to being inescapable and irreversible, communication is also very complicated. It can be misinterpreted, misheard, and misunderstood. It can also be interrupted. People can be good at communicating or poor at communicating, which becomes an important factor in how we think, feel, and respond in our personal and professional lives. Communication can be symbolic when referring to things the words or actions represent. When MLK delivered his speech underneath the massive statue of Abraham Lincoln, he made a statement without using any words. Lastly, communication is contextual, because when it comes to communication, lots of external factors matter.